Okay. Well, thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, first of all, on behalf of Chairman Royce and our Foreign Affairs Committee. Allow me to welcome you here today for this timely and important briefing and discussion. I look forward to hearing from all of you. I know that you have traveled from faraway places to be here today to have the opportunity to meet with me, with Chairman Royce, other members of our committee, and they'll be coming in and out to bring to our attention an issue I know that does not get all of the attention that it deserves, and I don't want to take up our valuable time together because I want to hear from you. I'll just say that you have a great team here with Joe and Shirley. This is a team effort, and they've done such great work on behalf of the Albanian American Civic League. They've got a wonderful reputation here in the United States Congress in a bipartisan manner. Both Republicans and Democrats support them, help them, and they've done this with great passion and a lot of expertise because it's a big world. There are a lot of important issues, and we depend on experts like all of you, led by Joe and Shirley, to let us know more detail about these issues. I've enjoyed working with them through the years, as Joe pointed out, on some of these issues that matter clearly, directly to you, and that means that they matter to us as well. So I take their advice very seriously and to heart, and their recommendations. So I look forward to hearing from you and them. So a few weeks ago, Shirley had shared with me a memo, which I believe you are here to discuss in greater detail. So I'm eager to hear your concerns and opinions regarding the current situation in Macedonia and what you think Congress can do to help resolve these issues. So with that being said, I welcome you. I look forward to hearing from all of you about what we can do here in the United States Congress to foster democratic reform, to improve civil society, and how can we increase trade between our nations. So Joe and Shirley, thank you for many years of friendship and cooperation on these important issues. Thank you very much to all of you for being here with us today. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Shirley.
Shirley's going to fill in between the lines now, what you said.
I think that this is kind of interesting because the memo that you're referring to actually was something that I wrote in March, and things have now dramatically changed.
Tell
some
us.
of the
Oh,
information
thank you.
that you've received. And if you don't mind, I'm also going to look
introduce
out here so that it's simply not only a discussion between us, but this is, needless to say, very directed to you, in part because, as Joe pointed out, Ileana is one of the leaders in the foreign policy community in the United States and cares deeply about human rights issues, and that's really what we're about here. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that everyone right now in Washington is really focused on one thing, understandably so, and that's ISIS.
Yes.
And how are we going to respond to that? This has been a terrible summer when you think about the developments. All of Congress is focused on ISIS, it's focused on Gaza, it's focused on Ukraine. But actually, this is precisely when the United States needs to be focused on Macedonia and the Balkans, because the truth of the matter is that Macedonia is falling apart. It is becoming a dysfunctional country. And I want to go back just briefly to say that whenever the United States takes a backseat to Europe, we're in trouble. So some of the information you're getting is very clear to me where some of the sources are, and I'll tell you why. Because with the exception of the Clinton administration, and they had to be pushed, when they dropped NATO's bombs on Serbia, all of our administrations in our lifetime have been taking a backseat to Europe, being involved in a policy of appeasement and containment, which does not work. And we always know when we take a back seat to Europe, ultimately because they can't, by virtue of their 28-member nation status, all having divergent views. It doesn't work. Even now we have 5 of those nations who don't recognize the independence of Kosovo. So it's always been the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. It's been Congressman Gilman, Lantos, Biden, Hyde, you, Dana Rohrabacher, quite explicitly, who made it possible, working with us in part, our information, and having more than one hearing over time, that led to peace in the region up to a certain point and the independence of Kosovo. Unfortunately, we are now back to where we kind of all began. We know that the bombs were dropped and it stopped the war finally, Slobodan Milosevic's genocidal march across Europe for a decade. Then, what happens in 2001? Macedonia erupts, and there's a great, fanfare about who was really responsible. It took us a year to convince state and the National Security Council that it wasn't Albanians who actually initiated this. It was actually coming from the ethnic Macedonian Slav ruling party, and we tried to even speak with them to say, don't move this into a military conflict. This can be resolved diplomatically, but unfortunately, no one anywhere was paying attention. So it took less than a year, but finally we had what was called the Ohrid Framework Agreement, signed by the United States and other leading members of NATO with both the Albanian political leadership and the Macedonian political leadership. The problem is that Ohrid in 2001, when it was signed in August, only little tiny portions of it have actually materialized. So that you have an ongoing situation of incredible racism and lack of human rights, terrible, criminal justice system, all on the backs of the Albanian people principally, even though there's not really one dominant ethnic group in Macedonia, but, the Macedonian Slavs are in power. Now, we're 13 years after Ohrid, and what has been happening? The EU has been sitting there, wringing their hands and putting out fires when the conflict happened. We've frankly been doing the same thing. We've all been, the State Department, been hiding behind, oh, we have Ohrid. Oh, we have, implementation. Oh, certain things have happened. Oh, Albanians are now able to hold up their flag or speak their language in certain, public settings. But in fact, there's hardly been any implementation of great proportion, certainly not any that would solve the root problems of the conflict. And all of this erupted this summer when I said you didn't know this yet because I hadn't had a chance. This document that I've just released, Roland Joni and I wrote it, expert in international law, will be coming out on Open Democracy quite soon. It's being published there. And it was the canary in the mine in July when, after 2 years, try this, with secret trials. This is even against, Macedonia has never done this before. Secret trials, one, protected witness, no evidence. 6 Albanians were given life imprisonment for the murder, alleged murder of 5 ethnic Macedonian fishermen. It was a spark plug. Albanians, thousands, raced into the streets in the capital of Skopje. They then, raced into the streets in all of the Western European capitals. Then in the United States, although a little bit smaller because, most people aren't aware of what's happening in the region here. In Australia, it went on and on and on. And that's when it became clear that we were at a terrible turning point. And the turning point that we're in is coupled by another problem that the Albanian community needs to recognize, I feel, and so does everyone dealing with the region. In that period, not only did the Western powers hide behind the Ohrid Framework Agreement saying, oh, we're doing something, they ignored the fact that both the leading ethnic Macedonian party and ethnic Albanian party are totally corrupt. They're lining their pockets. They're speaking the words of democracy. That's how you get so much information. And they're using nationalist rhetoric with their particular ethnic groups to increase levels of conflict. But then they're in partnership. So they have now been in power for 10 years. And unfortunately, we have looked the other way too consistently. Our State Department has unfortunate. I feel sad about this. It's not reflected elsewhere, and it's not everyone in state, by the way. We all know this. But we need a reset button there because there's been too much of an orientation of let's just have stability. Stability at all costs.
That's terrible.
And it is. And we know now in the 21st century this can no longer work. Human rights now has to come to the forefront.
Push a policy.
And what we especially want to do is ask for the United States to now pay attention because we're in danger. And I'll tell you why we're in danger. Macedonia is in line to enter NATO and enter the EU. And I'm very curious about how this can happen given the terrible conditions in which non-ethnic Macedonians are being treated, but also even many ethnic Macedonians, because we have all through the region now a power elite holding on to most of the benefits.
And a
corrupt power elite. And why, oh why, oh why, has the United States and the EU, have Washington and Brussels thought they could look the other way as if nothing, was about to emerge. And by the way, another interesting point you had to make when you said that economically they're sound. Truth of the matter is, that was what the economists and what everyone was saying. But guess what happened? They borrowed $1 billion from the EU, and they have spent it on recreating the capital of Skopje. It's called Skopje 2014.
With all the needs.
With all the needs, right? And it's pictures from mythological, history, trying to create this picture, and it's all linked to ethnic Macedonians when they are not the only leading, ethnic group in the country. So I think it's crucially important.
That is good and valuable.
Yeah, that we make sure they don't enter until there are changes. And then finally, the other issue of importance that literally is heartbreaking. We all know, anyone here who's in the Albanian American Civic League or who's studied the Albanian history, and you know this definitely, I know. Albanians have been secular Muslims, Orthodox Christians, Roman Catholics, and some Jews living in harmony for centuries. They were, like Sarajevo, the ideal. It's Ramadan, you have Christians going to the celebration. You have, Christmas Eve and all the Muslims are there. Now, what has happened in Macedonia, therefore, and it's starting to move into Kosovo, is heartbreaking. With all the money that has been taken from the people, the Wahhabi form of Islam has been encroaching in, largely through Saudi Arabia.
So dangerous.
For the first time, mosques are being built that there were none.
Yes.
For the first time, women, especially those whose husbands died in the war and are incredibly poor, are being approached, here, take this money, but you have to wear the veil. You have to go to the mosque. This never existed before. Now, Albanians, in addition to having religious harmony over centuries, also are the most pro-American ethnic group in the region, if not in all of Europe. We should not allow them to be forced into a situation where more and more people now look to the east, get involved in a form of Islam that never existed in Albanian lands, and now start to march into and potentially connect with some of the worst extreme forces that are emerging. And finally, I would say something else we also cannot overlook, and we have for a long time, and that's the role of Russia. Russia has always, since the Soviet Union has been, technically disbanded, with Putin now wanting to, reemerge.
Russia.
It's a problem for two reasons. What were the two regions that they most want to have control over and lost? The Middle East and the so-called Balkans, Southeast Europe. They themselves have been actively involved in some of the disintegration we're now seeing. So the time has arrived, and this is the key moment when I'm hoping that we can have a different kind of foreign policy, one that isn't going to be just putting fires out, one that isn't going to be muddling through,
rather than
that becomes
proactive.
Exactly. And now, finally, turns the tide. we must insist that until that Oak Ridge Agreement does actually have to be implemented. Otherwise, it will not be if, it will just be a matter of when we have war again. Thank you.
We might be called for vote, so let's
Yeah,
get Dana.
yeah, we want to-
But you're gonna be speaking with the State Department, Joe was just saying, and Shirley just gave a great overview of what the situation is, and you were heralded as one of their heroes, so.
The people of Kosovo have a right to determine their self-determination. And whatever race or religion or ethnic background people have, they have that right. It's part of our Declaration of Independence. And that thus, people who live in whatever country it is, they are endowed by God, not the government, with the rights of determining freedom and a self-determination for their people. This is, and it seems to me that the Albanian people are among perhaps the most oppressed in this angle, in that you've got a group of people who share a common language and tradition and values and ethnic background, and yet all over the world they've been split apart, pushed over here and there, and during the colonial era, just we had an intentional splitting up of the Albanian community to weaken its influence on that part of Europe. And so there are certain groups, and I see no reason why the United States should be the enforcer of these type of divisions that were given to us by colonialists 150 years ago or 200 years ago. And so I'm open-minded towards seeing what we can do consistent with our own Declaration of Independence and as consistent with the rights of these people. There it is.
Dana, I just basically gave an overview of the situation we find ourselves in right now, and I'll just say briefly that we are now at a turning point. Macedonia is falling apart. The potential for future conflict is really quite large, especially after this summer's massive protests when 6 Albanians were sentenced to life in prison after a secret trial that went on for 2 years. Known by the media there as the Monstra case, literally meaning monster. And this is a great time. You have been very vocal about this, and we, all of us, have appreciated this tremendously, and I know Ileana agrees with this, that the State Department has consistently been involved in appeasement and engagement in containment, in the region for many, many years. Stability at all costs, but absent, justice. And
well, they don't want. There is a consensus among State Department and government officials, and the United Nations and all of the quote establishment of the world believes that the one principle they believe in is the principle of you cannot change a border, even though we know those borders were created by power mongers and colonialists who had no right to chart the destiny of many different people. And for example, where most of you know that I've offered this alternative in Kosovo, so that in the northern part of Kosovo you have a river, and on the other side of that river you have 90% Serbs. They should not be part of Kosovo if they don't want to be part of Kosovo. But then again, there's another valley that goes into Serbia in which 70–80% of the people there are Kosovars. And I have proposed that they just switch the boundaries so that the valley becomes part of Kosovo and the north of the river becomes part of Serbia. But, oh no, you can't change the border. You can't. Well, you know what? As we progress in humankind, if things don't evolve, they reach breaking points. What you're talking about, it sounds like there's a breaking point that you're about to make in Macedonia. Because if you just let these things just not mold with the times and mold with the populations, you're going to have violence and you're going to have problems that you wouldn't have if you could just make sure that let people have the right to determine their destiny, and it will be less violence, not more.
Yes, I think we're at a turning point now, I think, because the sovereignty excuse isn't necessarily going to work. I think there are good people in the State Department who now see that we are in trouble, and they do recognize the second, third-class citizenship of Albanians, you know, throughout the region. So that's why I'm hoping that the two of you and like-minded leaders in foreign policy begin to re-engage this discussion before it blows up, and especially in light of ISIS and the push of the Wahhabi form of Islam into the region. I don't want to continue because I spoke at length, and I'll give you some more background at another point, but I want to give this now to some of our members.
But I think we have to realize, Dana, that it's not Albanians that are looking to change borders. What they're looking for is equality. They're looking for economic equality. If you saw the unemployment rates in Kosovo, in Preševa, it's 90%. Don't forget, the largest populations in Europe are Albanians. Why? Because they have large families. Now these kids are going to school. Not only can't they get jobs, they're not allowed to get visas to travel out of Kosovo. You're talking about building up such tension right now, and I think the United States is oblivious to this. You've got 40% unemployment minimum in Kosovo among the youth. You've got in Albania, the same thing. You've got 90% in Preševa. In Macedonia, forget it. Now the government's giving a few government jobs, but basically, I found out from somebody, the jobs they're giving to Albanians are through the Albanian party, which is corrupt, and they're saying, just take the money, stay back, you don't have to even work. That's not dignity. That means they're controlling artificially the government to keep repressing the Albanian people. It's happening all over the Balkans. And the corruption has to stop. And it's corrupt everywhere. In Albania, Kosovo, Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro. You're going to hear a little from Montenegro. And we're saying, oh, let Europe take care of it. Europe is not going to take care of it. They got their own problems. America has to take care of it, like we did in Kosovo. Thank you.
By the way, one of the things we can do in relation to that, and it's very, very, very easily done, both Albanians in Kosovo and Bosnians, they're the only people that aren't allowed to travel. There is no visa liberalization. So key people that really have a lot to give and are invited to international, conferences on all sorts of topics.
Give the example you just. She's
working
with a woman now.
I'm working with somebody with a PhD from the United States, supposed to be in Edinburgh, can't get to Edinburgh because she's not getting her visa approved. And she's definitely coming back. She runs an entire, section of the university. So again, this is something the U.S. needs to think about when you have the most pro-U.S. population. What's happening? They can go to Turkey anytime. They can go east. And those people who really feel compromised, we've already seen it by the situation, are now accepting money from groups in the Islamist extreme point simply to survive.
Ramazan Haidini. I was born in Macedonia, Kičevo. And basically, I emigrated here because of oppression, and I was sort of politically getting staged to be arrested when I was right after my high school. I just wanted to bring to the attention the Bureau of Statistics, or Department of Statistics in Macedonia, which has plays a crucial role in hiding facts as they are in the ground, which they are responsible for the census, or they are responsible giving the percentage number of population or the employment, and in different areas, according to their, well, first of all, on that department there is not even a single Albanian working. In the census department. Not a single one. And this is done in purpose because so the Albanians will not know the exact facts. What is, Macedonian government has been hiding the number of the population of the Albanians. By purpose, officially they state that there is 25.1% Albanians in Macedonia. But the actual number, which even European countries pretty much know the facts on the ground, it's supposed to be around 38–40%. by doing this, they actually misrepresenting. They want, the government of Macedonia wants the Albanians to be misrepresented in all spheres of life, in employment and in representation. For example, like an average Albanian deputy in the parliament equals to 30,000 votes. Average Macedonian, Slav Macedonian, equals 3,000 votes. So this is, the other side, if you study things, will show you really where and how is massive discrimination and kept lit by the government itself. And these are things that has to come up to light, and we should work to end this, because this is where everything starts. Well, in this village of Radishan, election night, a family of Zechiri, which is 16 people, they had a record of being attacked by the Macedonian Slavs. Throughout the years, maybe tens of times, their house was surrounded, yelling ethnic slurs, throwing stones, breaking their windows, beating up their kids after school, openly saying, Albanians, get out of here, this is not your area, move out of here. Every time they called the police failed to show up. 13th of April this year, election night, this is a group of about over 20 Macedonians who actually came right off the voting poll, and some of them were partisans of Gruevski's party, went, surrounded the house, and they started same over again. They called the police, nobody showed up. They attempted to burn the house. The next day, the family decided they leave. Actually, they asked the German government to give them refugee status, which was granted by them, and moved to Germany. And this was, it came up a lot of, they questioned even the Albanian parties about this, why they are not raising their voice. There was no answer to that. Albanian media gave it some attention, nobody else did, nor the Gruevski government. So this has been going on.
This has been going on, I think, for a long time.
For a long time.
Again and again.
Repeated and repeated, and there has to be some hate crime law in Macedonia as well.
My name is Destin Alou. I'm American citizen, and I have experience. I've been, in 1982, I was prosecuted in Macedonia for taking a part in a rally here, being in demonstration. So they they persecuted me 8 years. They accused me for being anti-government and this and that. So actually, we had a wedding Friday. Monday morning, the army and police came and arrested me in front of my family. And they took me away for 8 years. And this has happened to the Albanians in Macedonia all the time, never been stopped. So what we're really asking, we're asking for equal rights. We don't ask for changing of borders. Equal rights. We have 300,000 of Albanian, Christian Albanians, Orthodox, they're not allowed even to speak Albanian. That's very bad. The United States has a diplomatic relationship with Macedonia, they can do a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your help and help for Albanian nation and for the rights of the people everywhere in the world. It happens that I'm from Kosovo, but our concerns for what happens in Macedonia is the same. We are one nation. Albania, Kosovo, Montenegro, we are one nation. If there is problem in one part, nobody is in good spirit or in good position. We all are involved. At a certain point, we get involved, the problems become bigger. So we are one nation. I would like to say what is going on to establish a Russian connection here. Everything what Russia is doing in Ukraine, it was done to Albanians by Serbia and Montenegro, and especially by Macedonia. They have the same policy. They talk one thing, do opposite. They sign agreements, they never respect the agreements, they break the agreements, and they continue the same story. They promise, they deny, promise, deny, and propaganda all over. So we have to be very careful. This is an influence which is, Serbia is involved in Macedonia too. It's not only Macedonians that are doing this to Albanians. Serbia is involved there in every way possible. So that has to, now, we have problems with our leadership too. In Albania, in Kosovo, in Macedonia, they are corrupt because of the situation. Everywhere they are using the situation. Europe is not, the United States is holding back. The reason why I put the Russian connection is that Serbs and Macedonians are continuing to do the same thing. And they are in connection with Russia, definitely. Russia is, exerting her influence in that area, as you said before. They never gave up, the idea about dominating many nations in Europe, So this is, it's Slavic regimes coordinating efforts to suppress Albanians everywhere. That is in Montenegro too, because Montenegro is also connected with Serbia. And that is very important now to make it more, at this point, more to everybody, because now they understand what Russia is doing. They understand how they operate in Ukraine, how they lying, they shoot down the plane, and then they say, oh, no, nothing, yeah, not us, of course. That was, these are the things that have happened always to us and are still happening, and the West should understand with Russia, Serbia, and Macedonia, and Montenegro, only the language of pressure and force works, nothing else. Nothing else. Everything talks. They can talk as much as you want. They can say to you, oh, you are the best. We love you. Albanians should be everything. That's it. After that, they put the knife in your back. They have that policy. They work like that. We worked with them before. In every field, they work like that. It's a culture. It's a culture. Unfortunately, I don't want to say that we should hate all the people, but I'm talking about their leadership. It's always like that, and they are being supported by people. So that's very important connection. Now, of course, I was, also wanted to make a point about the leadership. We are not happy with leadership anywhere, with Albanian leadership now. In Albania, in Macedonia, in Kosovo, in Montenegro, Preševa, name it. All of them get corrupted somehow. They have no influence. They become somebody. They sit in a chair. Some of them, they make money, corruption, this and that. And I'm not faulting only them. I'm faulting also international community that is letting that happen. And that's why I wanted to make a point that the United States should get more involved, not let the Europe deal. Europe cannot solve anything. Absolutely not. Not that they don't want it. There are good people in Europe. They are smart and politicians and everything. But the influences in Europe are such, when you have all these countries, Greece has its own interests, Spain has its own interests, this and, they are not recognizing Kosovo as a country, you were expecting them to resolve the problem. And then we were been talking with Serbia, that was my another point. Talking and talking and talking. What did we achieve with all these talks? Nothing.
You mean this
Kosovo and Serbia. And the first point is, why would you talk with your neighbor about your home? We can talk with Serbs in Kosovo, with them, yes. We can talk, we can discuss with them if they have rights, if they don't have rights, everything. But I don't see any reason why should Albanians from Kosovo accept international pressure to talk with Serbia about our internal problems. We can talk about the borders, how to pass through Serbia to Europe, passports, this and that, visas, trade, everything. But not about the rights of our people.
Tragically, it's too late for that because
I don't know, but maybe we can stop it. I don't know.
Agreed to the Pristina-Belgrade agreement. We have to remember that.
But we were against it all the time, Shirley. But
American Civic League, we all know Dana Rohrabacher ran the only hearing in the West.
Well,
Because I
thank
know
you,
Sarah's
John,
right.
Shirley, and all board members for everything you have done for Albanian cause in the Balkans. I will agree completely what you said about situation in Macedonia, where it's really tragedy today after after so many years, after the Ohrid Agreement, what's happening, isn't acceptable. Same situation is in Montenegro. Situation today is worse than in 2003 when we went with Tom Lantos, delegation, met the Congressman Dene back in 2005. And for 20 years, Milo Djukanovic been promising Albanians, nothing happened. One thing I can say, it's no hope for Albanians and Montenegro. No hope for you young people who want to be educated, who want equal rights. All in this group agree, you know, I'm nothing more but nothing less in Montenegro. We want to be equal, we want to succeed in education, culture. It's kind of happening worse today than 20 years ago. Why? I think our politicians are really not doing enough for own people. And it's happening quiet ethnic cleansing. It's less and less activists in Montenegro, Albanian activists. It's not hurting just Albanians. Montenegrin government, or its corrupt government, its mafia government, in fact, they are stopped to become a NATO member because they figure out they have Russian spies in their government. That tells you how bad is Montenegro. And our money, from our government here, we support in Montenegro with blind eyes. It's unacceptable to really, they speak about democracy, but they didn't follow up. They have it in the paper, it looks beautiful, but nothing is being implemented. So situation is it's tragically today for Albanians in Montenegro, and it's really sad, and they have only hope. Albanians in Montenegro, they have only hope, and Albanian Civic League, and hope, and Washington, and in America, not in Europe. They never help us, they never will. They cannot take care of their own problems, and so we really need help. But first, we have our diplomats in Podgorica. They're doing very bad job.
We're going to say this to the State Department.
We don't get no right
They got to
information.
reset this room
Yeah,
now for another
now,
day, so
thank
we
you.
got to
That's
do
really
Thank you.
good. Warming them up for you. Come on over here. Let's have that microphone, Shirley.
I wanted to just welcome our guests here from Albania and share with you
And Macedonia.
and Macedonia
And Kosovo. And
and
Montenegro.
Kosovo and Montenegro,
They're
and we
ethnic
want to
Albanians.
make sure we protect the rights of ethnic Albanians all over the world. The United States has a major role in this because we have some challenges ahead of us. One is a resurgent Russia. So we want to make certain that in the middle of all of this, we don't end up with the rights of Albanians encroached upon. Another problem for Albanians is what is coming out of some of these DioGuardi schools funded by some prominent families, like the Bin Laden family, out of the Gulf states. And it's churning up a very radical adversarial interpretation. What they're trying to do is replace indigenous Muslim culture around the world with a viewpoint which is foreign to the history. And it is creating a problem for some of my friends in the Albanian Muslim community, and I don't doubt in your region for some problems there as well. And they've asked our help in trying to confront this. And as they say, first order of business, make certain that ISIL, that we bring together the international community, put a stop to ISIL. The other thing I hear is the most important issue for reform in the former Soviet states and in Eastern Europe. What can the United States help do to push for and bring about the economic reforms, anti-corruption reforms that are really going to bring foreign investment in and create economic growth? And that's another area where on our committee we're trying to do more. Congressman Rohrabacher chairs the subcommittee that is focused upon this part of the world, and Europe and Russia and this region. And we are committed to working together in order to make certain that those reforms go through, and in order to provide a little leverage to help the governments bring about the necessary changes legislatively that must go forward if we're going to see the kind of economic growth and opportunity we want to see for the next generation of young ethnic Albanians all over the world. With that said, maybe we could open to any questions that we should answer.
That's a very good statement. Thank you.
We are reforming Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty right now. The bill is over in the Senate, and our goal is to get back to the kind of aggressive communication we did under Ronald Reagan. The concept is to reach out to each of these language groups, linguistic groups, educate Russians on the issue of what's really happening, and on tolerance, respect for minority rights, political pluralism, what it means, what kinds of abuses are occurring in this part of the world and around the world, and do the same thing in Albanian, do the same thing in Serbian, do the same thing in Croatian, etc., etc. Why? Because they never heard, the Croatians and the Serbs never heard this message. And boy, did we pay for it. And boy, did you pay for it. Because I had a Croatian journalist tell me, oh, but if we could have heard something other than Serbian hate radio and Croatian hate radio and all of the radios from all of the different ethnic groups all hate each other, Yugoslavia might have had a very different transition rather than the conflict. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you broadcast to the Slovakians, you broadcast to the Czechs. Look at the way things were handled with the Czech Republic and Slovakia, without the loss of a single human life. You were broadcasting there. You did not broadcast here. Okay, so let's learn. Let's get up with public diplomacy and begin the lesson plan. But let's add to that the requirement that civil society have a voice to fight corruption, so that even governments which are our allies feel the pressure to reform, feel the necessity to hear the people, feel and hear the voice of civil society that says, time for the economic reforms, time for the anti-corruption bill, time for the transparency. I think a lot of this can be done, but we need more engagement. We'll do this. We will do this with your help.
You got to run, I know that.
And I'm late.
Yes. Because you've got to cast a vote. The thing you got to do is vote. See you.
I do.
Yes.
It's good to overcompensate.
Shannon Royce, between 4 and 5, we're going to see you at the Capitol.